Let me set the scene for you. It is 9:47 on a Monday morning. I'm at my desk, headphones around my neck, coffee number 2 going cold beside my keyboard. And on my laptop screen is a video call, 12 faces in 12 little boxes, and every single one of those faces is looking directly at me. Not at their screens, not at the presentation, not at Brian, who had been talking for 11 uninterrupted minutes about a process update that genuinely did not require 11 minutes. At me. Nobody is speaking. The kind of silence that has weight to it. The kind of silence that means something just happened and the air in the room has not yet decided what to do about it. I look down at my taskbar. The microphone icon is not muted. It was never muted. I want you to really sit with that for a second before we go any further, because what follows is the story of how I learned, permanently, irreversibly, in front of 12 colleagues and my boss. That assumption is the enemy of survival in corporate America. Let me back up to the beginning because context matters here. Every Monday morning at 9:30, our team had a mandatory all-hand video call. 12 people, cameras on. And if you were imagining something efficient and purposeful, I need to gently correct that image. These calls ran between 45 minutes and an hour, every single week, for a standing agenda that could have, and I want to be very precise here, been handled in a 12-minute email. I had been on approximately 40 of these calls. I had developed a system. Camera on because that was required. Mic on mute because that was survival. Half my attention on the call, half my attention on my inbox, because if I gave the full 45 minutes to the call, I would spend the rest of the day playing catch-up on actual work. It was not the most engaged approach. I'm aware of that. But it worked. It had worked for months without a single incident. This particular Monday had an additional variable that my system was not built to handle. Brian. Brian was a 40-year-old white man who wore polo shirts in colors that were slightly too bright and who had a relationship with meeting time that I can only describe as deeply personal. Brian did not speak in meetings so much as he occupied them. He would take a thought, a simple, already understood, already agreed upon thought, and he would walk it through every possible hallway of elaboration before arriving back at the exact point everyone already knew. On this Monday, Brian had the floor. He was presenting a process update, something about the new documentation system. Everyone already understood the new documentation system. We had received a written guide. We had a walkthrough session the previous Thursday. There was nothing new to add. Brian had been speaking for 11 minutes. I know it was 11 minutes because I had been watching the call timer in the corner of my screen while simultaneously responding to an email about a completely separate project. My camera was on. My expression was professionally neutral. I had perfected that particular skill. And my microphone was on mute. Or so I believed. Here is what I did not know. The little icon in my taskbar, the one I had glanced at when I joined the call and interpreted as the muted microphone symbol, was not the muted microphone symbol. It was a taskbar divider, a thin vertical line that my sleep-deprived Monday morning brain had read as the red slash that indicates a muted mic. My microphone had been live from the moment I joined the call, which means that the heavy sigh I exhaled when Brian started his third unnecessary restatement of the same point that went through everyone's speakers. The muttered, "Here we go," I said under my breath when the call ticked past 40 minutes. That went through everyone's speakers. The aggressive typing sounds from the email I was composing during someone else's presentation. Those went through everyone's speakers. And everyone, being professional and conflict avoidant and deeply committed to the social contract of the Monday morning all hands, had said absolutely nothing for the entire duration. They had all just been sitting there, listening, waiting. Brian was wrapping up, or what I thought was wrapping up. What was actually happening was Brian transitioning from his main point into a supplementary point that he felt was important to address before opening the floor. He said, and I am reconstructing this from memory because I was only half listening, something to the effect that the new documentation process was going to require everyone to adjust their current filing habits, and that he wanted to personally walk the team through a few examples to make sure nobody was confused about the new folder structure, even though the guide had already covered the folder structure and the Thursday walkthrough had already covered the folder structure, and there was FAQ document that had also covered the folder structure. And I, sitting at my desk on a Monday morning, exhausted and caffeinated and staring at an email that needed a response, said the following words out loud to no one in particular in what I believed was the total privacy of my muted microphone. "Brian, my brother, nobody asked you." The silence was immediate. Not the background noise silence of a normal call. Not the comfortable pause between speakers. This was a full, complete 12-person silence. The kind that forms when everyone hears the same thing at the same time and nobody is sure yet what the correct response is. I looked up from my email. 12 video boxes. 12 faces. Mark, in his little box in the middle row, had his mouth open behind his rectangular silver glasses. His hand was halfway raised toward his face and then frozen there like he forgot what he was doing with it. The young woman from our team, third box on the left, had both hands pressed against her cheeks, eyes wide, the physical embodiment of secondhand embarrassment. Brian himself was in the top left corner of the grid, mouth slightly open, the unfinished sentence still somewhere in the air between him and his camera. And in the top right corner, the box I always knew was there, the box I was always aware of even when I was pretending not to look at it, Jessica Miller. Navy blue blazer. Perfect posture, hands folded in front of her on her desk, looking directly into her camera with the exact expression she always had, which was to say no expression at all that I could read or interpret or use to gauge my immediate future. She blinked once. I looked down at my taskbar. The microphone icon looked back at me and told me the truth it had been telling me for the past 43 minutes. I want you to understand the specific quality of that moment. It was not the sharp, sudden shock of something going wrong. It was the slow, rolling understanding of how long it had already been wrong. Every sigh, every muttered comment, every aggressive typing sound. 43 minutes of the private interior of my Monday morning broadcast live to 12 people who had all made the collective professional decision to say absolutely nothing about it until this exact moment when it was no longer possible to say nothing about it. I sat there for 3 full seconds. 3 seconds is a very long time when 12 people are watching. I made a decision. I cleared my throat. I sat up slightly in my chair. I looked into my camera with the steady composure of a man who had made peace with something he could not change and said, in the most professionally calibrated voice I could locate on a Monday morning, "Sorry, I was just running through some notes out loud. Didn't mean to interrupt." "Brian, go ahead." 2 of those 3 sentences were not true. Brian said, "No worries," in the voice of a man for whom there were, in fact, a significant number of worries that he was choosing not to express in this forum. The call continued for 8 more minutes. Those 8 minutes were the most carefully, deliberately, aggressively normal 8 minutes of my professional life. Everyone spoke in slightly measured tones. Questions were asked and answered. The call ended with the usual sign-offs. And then the Slack messages came. Mark was first. No words. Just LMAO. All lowercase, which somehow made it worse and better simultaneously. The young woman from our team sent, "Are you okay, skull?" The skull emoji doing significant emotional heavy lifting in that message. Someone from a completely different department whose name I barely knew sent, "I felt that." 3 words. Full solidarity. No context needed. The message I did not receive was from Jessica Miller. No Slack message. No emoji. No acknowledgement of any kind, which was worse than any of the above. I spent the next 20 minutes doing the mental audit, replaying the call, cataloging every sound and comment that had gone through those speakers. The sigh, the here we go, the typing, the finale. Brian sent a follow-up email at 10:23 recapping his entire presentation. 5 paragraphs. Bullet points. He had included a diagram. I stared at that email for a long time. At 10:47, a calendar notification appeared on my screen. Jessica Miller had sent a meeting invite. Subject line, "Quick sync, Daniel." No description, no agenda, just those 4 words and a 30-minute slot at 2 p.m. Some people fear confrontation. Some people fear failure. I now understand that what I actually fear is a calendar invite with no agenda from a person whose face gives nothing away. I spent the next 3 hours preparing for every possible version of that conversation. The quick sync was not what I had prepared for. Jessica did not mention the call directly. She did not reference Brian. She did not quote me back to myself. She sat across from me, or rather appeared in my video call box, because of course this meeting was also virtual, in her navy blue blazer with her hands folded, and she asked me one question. She asked me whether I thought the current Monday all-hands format was working effectively for the team. I paused. I considered my options, and then I said, carefully and professionally, that I thought there might be opportunities to make the standing meeting more efficient and focused, and that the current format sometimes ran longer than the content required. Jessica nodded once, told me she had been thinking similarly, said that informal observations sometimes surfaced useful information, and that she appreciated directness even when the delivery was unconventional. She said that last part without any change in expression whatsoever. The meeting ended 11 minutes later. Nothing was promised. Nothing was confirmed. Just a conversation. The following Monday, the all-hands agenda arrived in everyone's inbox the night before. Time segments. 3 minutes per update. Hard stops. Brian's segment was listed as 3 minutes. I do not know with certainty that those two things are connected. I will never know with certainty that those two things are connected. But I know what I know. The week after that, Brian sent a 4-paragraph email to the team about the new meeting structure and his thoughts on it. I read the first paragraph and then closed it and went back to my work. Mark stopped by my desk, in person this time, pushed his glasses up his nose and said, "You know, what you said on that call wasn't wrong." He nodded with the confidence of a man delivering profound wisdom. He meant it as full support. It landed at about 65%. I appreciated it completely. I sat at my desk that afternoon and looked at the mute button on my laptop for a long, quiet moment. It is a small button, easily overlooked, easily misread on a Monday morning when you're tired and caffeinated and Brian is talking about a folder structure that everyone already understands. But it is the most important button on the entire keyboard. Check your mute button. Check it twice. Check a third time. And if you ever find yourself thinking, "Surely I'm muted right now," I need you to hear me clearly. You are not muted. You are never muted. The microphone is always on. Treat every call like your boss is sitting in the corner of your screen in a navy blue blazer saying absolutely nothing. Because she is. She always is. If this destroyed you a little bit, like and subscribe. Drop your worst unmute moment in the comments. I know I'm not alone in this. I refuse to be alone in this.